The smell of roasted lamb still lingered in the dining room when the shouting started. What should have been a quiet family dinner on a rainy Thursday night spiraled into a storm that would change everything. "Don't play games with me, Dad," Ethan said, his fists pressed flat against the oak table. His jaw tightened, his voice vibrating with barely controlled anger. "You think I don't know? I've seen the paperwork. I know about the new will." I set my fork down slowly, heart pounding in my chest. My wife had passed 3 years ago, and in the loneliness that followed, I'd started planning where the family business would go when I was gone. The construction company I built from the ground up, 40 years of sweat and sacrifice. "Yes," I said, choosing my words carefully. "I've made changes. The business will go to your sister, Claire. She's been running the operations for years, while I what?" Ethan spat. "While I wasted my time. While I wasn't your perfect little soldier, following orders like she does. While you refused responsibility," I countered. My voice cracked despite my attempt to sound firm. "While you jumped from job to job, never sticking to anything, never showing commitment. This company needs stability. It needs someone reliable." Ethan's eyes burned. "And you never gave me that chance. Every time I tried, you shut me down. You made sure I failed so Claire could shine." Claire, sitting silently across the table, shifted uncomfortably. "Ethan, please. This isn't about me." "Shut up." Ethan's voice boomed, startling both of us. He slammed his palm on the table so hard the silverware rattled. "You've been Dad's favorite since the day you were born. You don't get to play innocent now." The rain outside pelted the windows, thunder rumbling in the distance. My chest felt heavy, the weight of years of mistakes pressing down on me. I'd tried to guide Ethan, yes, but maybe I'd been too harsh, too controlling. Still, what he was saying cut deep. "I only wanted you to earn it," I said softly. "Not demand it. You can't run a company on entitlement, Ethan. You have to prove you're capable." His face twisted, not with hurt, but with something darker. Resentment. Resentment that had been festering quietly for years, now bursting to the surface like a dam breaking. "You'll regret this," he said, his voice low and trembling. "You think you can humiliate me? Cut me out of what's mine? You're wrong." The silence that followed was suffocating. Claire stared at him in horror. I tried to hold my composure, but inside, something icy settled in my gut. This wasn't teenage rebellion anymore. Ethan was 27. He wasn't lashing out, he was plotting. Without another word, he pushed back from the table and stormed out of the house, the front door slamming so hard it rattled the frame. Claire turned to me, her face pale. "Dad, he's serious. I've seen the way he talks about money, about control. I think you might actually try something." I wanted to reassure her, to tell her Ethan's just angry, that he'll cool down. But deep inside, I knew better. The look in his eyes wasn't just anger. It was intent. The following weeks passed with uneasy calm. Ethan stopped returning my calls. His number went straight to voicemail, his apartment was empty whenever Claire drove by to check. He had disappeared, and that silence gnawed at me more than any argument could. I buried myself in work at the construction sites, inspecting steel beams, reviewing contracts, pretending everything was fine. But at night, when the office lights dimmed and I sat alone at my desk, doubts crawled into my mind. Had I pushed him too hard? Did I create this rift myself? My wife, God rest her soul, always said I had a heavy hand. That I expected too much. But then I remembered the threats, the venom in Ethan's words. "You'll regret this." No, this wasn't just my failure as a father. This was something else, something Ethan had chosen to become. It was Claire who first noticed the signs. "Dad," she said one morning, bursting into my office, her face drained of color. She held her phone out, showing me an Instagram story Ethan had posted the night before. The video was shaky, filmed in some dimly lit warehouse. Ethan's face filled the screen, grinning in a way I didn't recognize. Behind him, piles of cash and bottles of expensive liquor cluttered a table. "You think you can cut me out?" he slurred into the camera, laughing. "You think you can control me? Watch me. Watch me build something bigger than your little empire." The video ended with him slamming a fistful of money on the table and the words flashing on screen, "I don't need family. I don't need you." I sank into my chair, stomach twisting. He wasn't just lashing out. He was spiraling into something dangerous. Claire sat across from me, voice trembling. "Dad, I think he's mixed up with people. Look at that place. That money isn't his. He's involved in something bad." My hands shook as I set the phone down. A memory flashed in my mind, Ethan as a boy, holding my hand at a construction site, pointing excitedly at the cranes. "Someday, Dad, I'll build even bigger buildings than you." Now that same boy was threatening to tear down everything I'd built. 2 weeks later, Ethan called. It was a Saturday evening, and I was locking up the office when my phone buzzed. His name flashed on the screen. My breath caught. "Dad," his voice was calm, too calm. "We need to talk. Just you and me. Tomorrow morning. There's a cabin up north, by the lake. Remember the one you used to take us fishing at?" I froze. That cabin had been abandoned for years, ever since my wife passed. A remote, isolated place. "Why there?" I asked cautiously. "Because it's quiet. No distractions. We'll settle things once and for all." His tone was sharp, clipped, leaving no room for argument. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. But then he added, "If you don't come, you'll never see me again." The line went dead. I stood in the empty office, phone still pressed to my ear, staring at the darkened windows. The rain tapped gently against the glass, just like the night he'd stormed out. This wasn't just a meeting. This was a confrontation. Maybe even a trap. And yet, deep inside, I knew I had to go. The next morning, the road north was slick with dew, the forest on either side cloaked in early mist. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than I realized, every mile bringing me closer to something I couldn't name. The cabin appeared through the trees, its wooden frame withered by years of neglect. The lake stretched out behind it, still and gray beneath the cloudy sky. Ethan's car was parked outside. My chest tightened. I stepped out slowly, scanning the area. Silence. Just the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a loon across the water. The cabin door creaked open, and Ethan stepped out. He was dressed in black, his hair disheveled, his eyes carrying a strange glint. "Dad," he said flatly. "You came." I nodded, my throat dry. "I'm here. Let's talk." But as he stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter the cabin, I realized with chilling certainty, this wasn't a conversation. It was a showdown. The cabin smelled of mildew and damp wood as I stepped inside. Dust clung to the beams, and cobwebs stretched across the corners. Once, this had been a place of laughter and warmth, where I taught Ethan and Claire to fish, where my wife would hum as she prepared sandwiches for us. Now, it felt like walking into a grave. Ethan shut the door behind me with a heavy thud. "Sit down," he said, nodding toward the old table in the center of the room. His voice carried no warmth, no hint of the son I once knew. I pulled out a chair and sat slowly, never taking my eyes off him. He leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching me like a predator studies prey. "So," I said cautiously, "we're here. Talk." He smirked. "Oh, I'll talk. But first, I want you to listen. You owe me that much. I nodded, though every muscle in my body screamed to get out. You spent my whole life treating me like I wasn't enough, he began, pacing slowly. Every mistake, every slip-up, you magnified it. You crushed me under your expectations. And Claire? She could trip and fall, and you'd call her graceful. That's not true, I said firmly. I held you both to the same standards. Claire just what? He snapped. She just played your game better? She just kissed up while I actually lived my life? He slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing in the cabin. You never wanted me to succeed. You wanted me to fail, so you could keep pretending she was the golden child. My chest tightened. I wanted to argue, to remind him of the opportunities I'd given, the second chances, the money I'd spent bailing him out of debt. But I saw the fury in his eyes, and I realized reason wouldn't reach him. This wasn't about logic. This was about resentment, years of it, twisted into poison. Ethan, I said softly, I never stopped loving you. You're my son. But love doesn't mean handing over the company to someone who isn't ready. I needed you to show discipline. Responsibility. That's not favoritism. That's reality. He chuckled darkly. Responsibility? Don't worry, Dad. I've learned responsibility. In fact, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small black notebook, dropping it on the table with a thud. I frowned, picking it up. Inside were scribbled numbers, names, transactions. And then it hit me. These weren't business deals. These were debts. You're running with loan sharks, I whispered, horrified. Not just running, he said proudly. Partnering. You thought I was a failure? Look at me now. I've got connections, influence, money flowing in ways you never dreamed of. I don't need your empire, old man. I'm building my own. I flipped through the pages, my heart sinking deeper with each line. Large sums, cash only. Names I didn't recognize, but the pattern was clear. Drugs. Gambling. Black market deals. You're digging your own grave, I said, my voice shaking. These people will destroy you. This isn't building something. This is suicide. Ethan leaned closer, his eyes glinting. Not if I have leverage. I froze. What do you mean? He grinned, pulling out his phone. With a few taps, he turned the screen toward me. My heart stopped. It was a video, me, edited from old recordings, spliced together with recent clips from construction sites. The way he'd cut it, it looked like I was signing off on illegal contracts, approving shady payments, pocketing money that wasn't mine. This is what I mean, Ethan said smugly. You see, Dad, you're respected. People believe you're honest. That makes you the perfect fall guy. If the authorities see this, they won't look at me. They'll look at you. My blood ran cold. He'd planned this. He'd been building it, quietly, while I thought he'd disappeared. Why? I whispered. Why would you do this to your own father? He leaned back, folding his arms with satisfaction. Because you took everything from me. Now I take everything from you. I stared at him, a storm of emotions boiling inside me, grief, rage, disbelief. My son, the boy I once carried on my shoulders, was threatening to destroy me. You don't have to do this, I said, my voice trembling but steady. You can walk away. Start over. I'll help you. We can fix this. For a moment, just a fraction of a second, I thought I saw doubt flicker in his eyes. But then it hardened again. No, he said coldly. It's too late for that. The hours dragged on as we argued. Ethan laying out his grievances, me trying desperately to reach the son I once knew. But every word, every plea, seemed to bounce off him like rain against stone. Finally, he stood. "This is how it's going to work," he said. "You're going to transfer the company shares to me." "Not Claire." "Me. I'll run it," and in return, he tapped the phone in his pocket. "This video stays buried." I stared at him in disbelief. "You want to blackmail me? Your own father?" He smirked. "Call it justice." By the time I drove back home that night, the rain had started again. The wipers struggled to clear the windshield as my mind raced. I wanted to believe Ethan was bluffing, that he wouldn't actually go through with it. But deep down, I knew. He'd crossed the line. When I pulled into the driveway, Claire was waiting by the window, her face pale with worry. She ran out the door before I'd even shut the engine off. "Dad, what happened? What did he say?" I couldn't bring myself to speak. My hands were trembling too badly. Instead, I pressed my forehead to hers and whispered the truth. "He's not coming back to us, Claire. He's declared war." The next morning, the war began. Emails flooded my inbox, doctored documents, fake invoices, contracts that made me look complicit in crimes I hadn't committed. Anonymous tips started circling through City Hall, whispers that the honorable businessman was nothing but a fraud. And then came the knock at the door. 2 officers stood there, hats in hand. "Mr. Caldwell," one said politely, "we need to ask you a few questions." Claire gasped. My heart sank. Ethan had fired his first shot. The officers' shoes squeaked against the polished hardwood as they stepped into my living room. Their tone was calm, professional, but their presence carried weight. "Mr. Caldwell," the older one began, adjusting his badge. "We've received reports regarding irregularities in your company's financials. We just need to clarify a few things." Claire stood frozen by the staircase, her hand gripping the banisters so tightly her knuckles turned white. I forced a steady breath and gestured toward the couch. "Of course. Please, sit. I have nothing to hide." They asked questions about invoices, about contracts I'd supposedly approved. Each time, I tried to explain. That wasn't my signature. That deal never happened. Those weren't my numbers. But as they showed me copies of the documents, I saw Ethan's hand all over them. Forged signatures. Altered dates. Meticulous, convincing fabrications. When the questioning ended, the younger officer leaned forward. "We're not here to accuse, sir. Just to get clarity. But I'll be honest, the evidence looks concerning. If more comes up, you may need to appear formally." They left with polite nods, but the weight they carried stayed behind, pressing on my chest. Claire rushed to me. "Dad, this is him. This is Ethan. He's setting you up." I sank into the couch, burying my face in my hands. I know. God help me, I know. The days that followed blurred into a storm of stress. Rumors spread through the industry. Business partners pulled back, contracts froze, clients hesitated to renew deals. My reputation, the foundation of everything I'd built, was cracking. Claire worked tirelessly by my side, digging through company files, cross-checking signatures, trying to build proof of my innocence. But every time we found something, Ethan was one step ahead. He leaked another document, another fake email. The lies multiplied faster than we could disprove them. And then came the call. I was in the office late one night, papers strewn across the desk, when my phone buzzed. Ethan's number. "Hello?" My voice was gravel. "Enjoying the storm?" His tone dripped with amusement. "I told you, Dad. You cut me out, I cut you down. Ethan, listen to me." "No, you listen." His voice sharpened. "This is your last chance. Transfer the shares. Make me head of Caldwell Construction, or I'll bury you so deep you'll never claw your way back. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached. You think this is victory? Destroying your father? Destroying your family? He laughed bitterly. Family? You destroyed that the day you chose her over me. The line went dead. I sat there in the silence, rage and sorrow battling in my chest. He wasn't bluffing. He'd burned everything to the ground just to win. That night, I made a decision. If Ethan wanted war, then I'd stop playing defense. I'd fight back. Claire was hesitant when I told her my plan. Dad, you can't stoop to his level, she pleaded. If you fight dirty, you'll become just like him. No, I said firmly. I'm not fighting dirty. I'm fighting smart. He's been playing me like a fool, thinking I'd just roll over. But he's sloppy. Overconfident. Somewhere in his mess, he's made mistakes. And we're going to find them. We dug deeper. We pulled bank records, combed through Ethan's old emails, traced his connections. And then, finally, we found it. Buried in a chain of encrypted messages, there was a crack. A deal Ethan had signed under an alias, but the timing didn't line up. He'd been in 2 places at once. The documents couldn't be real. Here, Claire whispered, excitement sparking in her eyes. This proves forgery. If we can cross-reference this with the originals, we can expose him. It was a glimmer of hope. But it wasn't enough. We needed more. Then came another blow. A week later, I walked into the office to find reporters swarming the lobby. Microphones shoved in my face, cameras flashing. Mr. Caldwell, did you embezzle funds from your own company? Sir, is it true you're facing indictment? How do you respond to claims you're funneling money offshore? Claire forced a path through them, shielding me as best she could. But the damage was done. By the time we reached the elevator, my head was pounding. Dad, this isn't sustainable, she said softly. They're going to crucify you in the media before we even get a chance to defend ourselves. I leaned against the wall, heart heavy. Ethan wasn't just attacking me financially. He was erasing my legacy. That evening, I found myself alone in the office again. The city lights blinked outside the window, distant and indifferent. I stared at a photo on my desk, Ethan at age 10, smiling proudly as he held up a model skyscraper we'd built together. His eyes back then were full of dreams, not venom. How had it come to this? As I sat there, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at the docks. Midnight. I have information about your son. My stomach twisted. A trap? Probably. But something told me I couldn't ignore it. Midnight came, and the dock stretched out before me, fog curling over the water. The air smelled of salt and rust. I pulled my coat tighter, scanning the shadows. A figure emerged, a man in his 30s, rough around the edges, eyes darting nervously. You Caldwell? He asked. Yes. I worked with your boy, he muttered, glancing over his shoulder. He's in deep. Real deep. But he's sloppy. Keeps records. Every deal, every payout, he logs it. Paranoid, I guess. If you get your hands on that ledger, you can bury him before he buries you. My pulse quickened. Where? The man shifted uneasily. Warehouse on 6th. He keeps it locked up, guarded sometimes. But it's there. Before I could press for more, the man stiffened, his eyes widening. I turned just in time to see headlights flare through the fog. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Doors flew open. Run, the man hissed. We scattered, but it was too late. Figures in masks poured out, shouting. I dove behind a stack of crates as bullets cracked the air. The man wasn't so lucky. A scream, a thud. Silence. I crouched there, heart hammering, until the SUV roared away into the night. When I finally dared to move, the man was gone, his body dragged, or maybe taken. Only a smear of blood marked the ground. But his words echoed in my head. The ledger. Warehouse on 6th. Ethan had left me a weapon, and I intended to use it. Back home, I told Claire everything. Her face went pale, but her jaw set with determination. "Then that's our chance," she said. "We find the ledger. We end this." I nodded. "Yes. But we'll have to be careful. If Ethan suspects." Claire's eyes burned with resolve. "Then we outsmart him. Together." As dawn broke, the city outside began to stir. I stood by the window, watching the light spill over the skyline. Ethan thought he had me cornered. Thought he could strip me of everything I was. But now, I had a path forward. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The warehouse sat on 6th like a sleeping beast. Rust-stained siding, boarded windows, the smell of oil and old timber. From the outside, it looked abandoned. But I knew better. Inside those walls lay Ethan's secret, the ledger that could unravel everything he'd built his scheme upon. Claire and I waited in the car across the street, the night heavy with silence. She gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles glowed pale. "You're sure about this?" she asked quietly. "No," I admitted. "But we don't have a choice." Her jaw clenched. "Then let's finish this." We crossed the street under cover of shadows. A padlock secured the warehouse's side door, but the rusted metal gave way beneath a twist of my old Navy knife. Inside, darkness swallowed us. The faint moonlight filtering through cracks in the boards revealed stacks of crates, tarps, and broken machinery. I motioned for silence. Every creak of the floor echoed like thunder. Somewhere deeper, I heard the faint hum of electronics. We followed the sound. Past crates and broken pallets, into a makeshift office cobbled together in the far corner. A desk sat under a single hanging bulb, paperwork stacked high. And there, in plain sight, a leather-bound book, thick, worn, heavy with secrets. The ledger. Claire's breath caught. "Dad, we found it." I reached for it, heart pounding. But before my fingers touched the cover, a voice sliced through the darkness. "Congratulations, old man. You found the bait." Lights snapped on, flooding the warehouse. Claire gasped. Ethan stepped from behind a stack of crates, flanked by two men in dark jackets, both armed. His smirk was colder than the steel they carried. "You really thought you could sneak in here," he mocked. "I knew you'd come running the second someone whispered about a ledger. You're predictable, Dad. Always have been." My pulse quickened, but I forced my voice calm. "And you're careless. Keeping all your crimes in one place? That's not strategy. That's arrogance." Ethan's smirk faltered for a flicker, then returned. "Doesn't matter. You won't be leaving with it." Claire stepped forward, defiance blazing in her eyes. "You think you're untouchable, Ethan? You've ruined Dad's reputation, nearly destroyed this family, and for what? Money? Power? You're pathetic." His jaw tightened. "Shut up, Claire." "No," she spat. "You want everyone to fear you, but you're nothing without his name. Without Dad's company, you're just a bitter child throwing tantrums." One of Ethan's men shifted uncomfortably. The other lowered his weapon slightly. Words cut deeper than bullets sometimes. I seized the moment. "Look at him," I said to the guards. "This is the man you're protecting. A son who abandoned his own father in the wilderness to die. Do you think he'll treat you better when you're no longer useful?" Their eyes flicked toward Ethan, doubt creeping in. Ethan noticed. His mask cracked, rage spilling through. Enough, he snapped. Do your jobs. But hesitation hung in the air. I lunged forward, grabbing the ledger and shoving it inside my jacket. Ethan cursed and charged. We collided, crashing against the desk, papers scattering. His fists swung wild with fury, but I blocked with the reflexes of a man who'd fought too many battles to give in now. Claire screamed as one of the guards tried to intervene, then faltered, torn between orders and conscience. Ethan clawed for the ledger. Give it to me. Over my dead body, I growled. His eyes lit with madness. That can be arranged. We grappled, shoving each other across the room until we slammed against a stack of crates. The wood splintered, crashing down around us. Dust choked the air. And then, a gunshot. Everyone froze. One guard stood trembling, his pistol smoking, aimed not at me, but at the ceiling. His face was pale. I didn't sign up for this, he stammered. I'm done. He tossed the gun aside and bolted for the door. The other man hesitated, then followed. Ethan was left alone. His eyes burned with fury. Cowards, he hissed. Then he turned back to me, wild, desperate. Fine. I'll finish this myself. We clashed again, fists and fury, years of resentment pouring out through every strike. He was younger, faster, but rage makes men sloppy. I fought with precision, every movement fueled by survival, by justice, by love for the daughter watching in horror. Finally, with a surge of strength I didn't know I still had, I slammed him against the desk. The ledger spilled open between us, pages fluttering, every forged contract, every laundering scheme, every betrayal exposed under the harsh light. Claire snatched her phone, snapping photos, recording video. It's over, Ethan. We have everything. Ethan's eyes darted, panic rising. He shoved me back, bolted toward the exit. But sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights flickered through the cracks in the warehouse walls. Ethan froze. I stood tall, chest heaving, and met his eyes. Game's over, son. Police poured in seconds later, weapons drawn. Ethan dropped to his knees, hands trembling. The officers swarmed, cuffing him, reading his rights. His face twisted from fury to disbelief to something almost childlike, as though he still expected me to step in, to protect him like I always had. But I didn't move. For the first time, I let him face the consequences of his own making. Hours later, the warehouse buzzed with police chatter. Officers cataloged the ledger, collected papers, logged evidence. Claire leaned against me, exhausted but triumphant. You did it, Dad, she whispered. You finally stopped him. I shook my head. No, Claire. We did it. She smiled faintly, resting her head on my shoulder. The trial came swiftly. With the ledger, the recordings, and witness testimonies, Ethan's empire of lies crumbled. The charges stacked high: fraud, forgery, conspiracy, attempted murder. I sat in the courtroom, listening as my son was sentenced to decades behind bars. He didn't look at me once. And maybe that was for the best. Months passed. Life slowly found rhythm again. The company recovered under Claire's leadership, partners returning as the truth cleared my name. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, I sat on the porch with Claire. You think he'll ever change? She asked quietly. I stared at the horizon. I don't know. Some wounds run too deep. But what I do know is this: we're free now. Free to rebuild, free to live without his shadow. Claire slipped her hand into mine. Then let's make it count. I nodded, a quiet peace settling over me. Ethan had tried to destroy me, to steal everything I was. But in the end, he gave me something he never intended. Clarity. strength, and the chance to finally live not in fear of losing, but in gratitude for what I still had. Family, honor, redemption. And as the night air wrapped around us, I knew one truth above all. Revenge wasn't about destroying him. It was about reclaiming myself.